In honor of the recent NBA draft, we're going back and looking at the worst draft day comparisons from every single year since 2000. And we're getting all of our comparisons today from NBADraft.net and using the ones they provided. There's some that are bad, some that are terrible, and some that may just leave you flat out speechless. And starting things off extremely hot, leading up to the 2000 NBA draft, NBADraft.net had Deshaun Stevenson's draft day comparison as Michael Jordan, which many fans have labeled as the worst comparison of all time. Listen, I think it's no coincidence that Deshaun was also then taken with a 23rd overall pick that year, but that's the only connection these two have. Like, I get it, he idolized Kobe and modeled his game after him, but he was coming into the league at a high school. Not only did they compare someone to MJ, but they compared a high school kid to him. Then he went and averaged 11, 3, and 1 in his best season, mostly being known as a role player and a decent defender. Apparently what they saw in him early on was that he was a great dunker and an extremely gifted athlete who was an advanced scorer for his age, but obviously there wasn't that much upside. In 2001 we keep things rolling and it stays bad, and Eddie Curry was another player scouted and drafted out of high school. Well, he went 4th overall thanks to his comparison being Shaq. I get it, he was a 7-foot, 300-pound high school kid, so of course he dominated all the other kids, and that was enough for scouts to say that he would be like Shaq and that would carry over to the league. Honestly, he was a solid center for a couple years, but definitely no Shaq, and it was just a cheap comparison to make. Also in 2001, Kwame Brown was coming into the NBA, and scouts had him as a cross between Karl Malone and Chris Webber, so basically the size of Malone with the versatility of Chris, which as we know didn't happen at all, and that was 2 top 4 picks this year picked based solely off their size. Now 2002 is full of some of the most terrible picks imaginable, so I'll run through these a little quicker. Yao Ming, the 7'6" first overall pick, was compared to Rick Smits. I feel like this was just based on Rick being the only fitting player based on his size. DeJuan Wagner was decent in high school and college, while his NBA career ended because of injuries after only 100 games. He still should have never been compared to Allen Iverson though. Amari Stoudemire's comparison doesn't make sense at all looking back, seeing that it was Ben Wallace, and they just keep going downhill. We all remember Nene, right? Solid traditional power forward, mainly came off the bench. Well, he was compared to Hakeem Olajuwon, and the only similarities that these two have is that they're international players. While Mike Dunleavy Jr., when he was in the NBA, he was like a Gordon Hayward type player, but before the draft, he was compared to be Larry Bird. In 2003, Darko Milicic was infamously overhyped and thought to be the next Dirk Nowitzki, which is just sad and stupid. In 2004, if it hadn't happened by now, scouts lost all credibility when comparing Dwight Howard to Kwame Brown. I don't get it. You overhype Kwame, then he's a bust, then you use him to compare Dwight Howard to, who turns into a Hall of Fame level player. You just can't get anything right. In 2005, there weren't a ton of terrible comparisons, but at first, for the first half of his career, comparing Darren Williams to Andre Miller did look like it. But then the second half of Darren's career, he was looking a lot more like Andre. I mean, it only took them 10 years, but I will say they eventually got this one right. One of the most infamous comparisons of all time came in 2006. Now listen, I get it. Adam Morrison seemed like a star in Gonzaga. He had some wild games and led the NCAA in scoring his final year. But it's these dudes' only job to get these right, and they said he was the next Larry Bird. Then he came in and basically only played 2 seasons in the NBA before he was gone. Then he went to play overseas for only 2 more seasons before retiring at 27. Man, what a turn of events. NBA scouts also compared Gerald Green to Tracy McGrady straight out of high school because of his extreme athleticism and ability to get to the basket with ease. I mean, it makes sense. He was the #1 overall prospect in high school that year, and he was supposed to be a very high lottery pick too, but only gave workouts to certain teams, so he dropped down in the draft. So he had everyone fooled, and it shows why most teams still need to see players go to college first. In 2007, Greg Oden deserved to be at least a top 2 pick in that draft based on how good he was in college. And not even looking at his NBA career, I still feel like comparing him to a cross between David Robinson and Bill Russell was way too much. Like, how good did you think this dude was gonna be? For 2008, there's just something about the difference between college and the NBA that throws a lot of players off. Like Michael Beasley. He was a dominant superstar in his 1 year at Kansas. It's hard to argue that he didn't deserve to be drafted 2nd overall that year. So NBA scouts were comparing him to Carmelo Anthony, and that wasn't terrible at the time. Now, looking back, it was. He was just never that guy in the league. Moving ahead to 2009, Hasheem Thabeet was a 7'3" foreign monster defender who averaged 4 blocks a game in college at UConn. And can the league stop getting fooled by these players? The defense and shot blocking usually doesn't translate to the league. It didn't for Nerlens Noel, Porzingis, and probably won't all the way for Chet Holmgren either, which is why they should have known not to compare Hasheem to Dikembe Mutombo. Especially given the fact that he wasn't good on offense at all, teams should have known better to stay away. In 2010, the worst was scouts and NBADraft.net comparing Evan Turner to Brandon Roy. They spent his entire draft report talking about how amazing of a scorer he was, similar to Brandon. Then he came in the league and barely ever averaged double digits. Another bad 2010 comparison was comparing Greg Monroe to Lamar Odom. Yes, because the 260-pound center was going to come in the league and play like Lamar Odom. Apparently he could and did do it all in college, college with passing, scoring, rebounding, blocking shots, and getting steals. But in the NBA, we only saw 2 of those. The 2011 draft day comparison of saying Enes Kanter was going to be like Al Horford is just laughable and makes no sense even for at the time. 2012 must have been a great year for scouts losing their jobs, because here's what we had. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist getting compared to Andre Iguodala, Jeremy Lamb and Reggie Miller, and Draymond Green and Jared Dudley. I mean, come on. The one that obviously stands out here is Jeremy Lamb and Reggie Miller. And scouts really thought Jeremy Lamb was going to be a superstar. Move up to 2013, and here's a couple of the worst ones in the past decade right away. Scouts thought Giannis was going to be a player like Nicholas Batum. And I mean, I could see it, but he's only been like 1,000 times better, and it's their job to have seen that coming. While Ben McLemore was highly athletic coming into the league, they thought he was going to be like a Ray Allen, which was never even close to coming true. He's a decent shooter, but he's at the end of most benches in the league. For 2014, apparently Dante Exum was supposed to be the next Penny Hardaway, and he was similar to Penny Hardaway after he got injured. With 2015, there was just some terrible takes. Sam Decker being the next Gordon Hayward, and Emmanuel Mudiay being the next John Wall, both of which are now under 30 years old and playing overseas. I mean, Emmanuel Mudiay had similar athleticism to John Wall. You'd see him out on the court and he would move like Wall, but that was about it. Then we get to 2016 and well, old Benjamin Simmons compared to LeBron James and Lamar Odom. Okay, I get it. You can see where at the beginning of his career this would have kind of made sense. Well, you can also see right now why it's completely wrong. And in his draft report, they were spot on about some things. Despite being a good scorer, he lacks a reliable jump shot. His form doesn't have any glaring mechanical flaws, but it's apparent that it's the one element of his game that he isn't completely confident in. And all those are right on point. Well, let's look where this draft report turned sour. These were under strengths. He's a hardworking kid, well-spoken, confident kid who apparently has no trouble being a vocal leader and a strong communicator. Level-headed, mature kid who seems to battle through adversity with ease, does not lose his cool or get down when things get challenging. All right, I'm done. I get it. It would have been hard to see all those things coming for Simmons, but this one's just too good looking back on. 2017 was a busy year for failed draft reports. We had Josh Jackson getting compared to Kawhi Leonard, Donovan Mitchell thought to be the next Norman Powell, and Markelle Fultz planning on being the next James Harden. If you watch Josh Jackson's game for about a minute and a half, I could see the Kawhi comparison, especially to him early on. But if you keep watching any longer than that, then obviously it's completely off. So they must have come up with this one after watching a Hoop mixtape. Donovan Mitchell surprised a lot of people, and really only the Utah Jazz saw how good Mitchell was going to be ahead of time. I could see some aspects of Norman's game in Mitchell, so I guess I get it. Then of course, no one could have seen Markelle Fultz's self-destruction coming. It's crazy that he was getting these kinds of comparisons too. Was living the dream and got to be picked first overall, and then just never had a healthy season in the NBA. And now he could still become a great player one day, but he'll never be first overall pick, college level Markelle Fultz again. 2018 was a little interesting. Mo Bamba was another guy that was thought to be a potential big star and a great defender. So much so that he was compared to Rudy Gobert, and he's starting to go the other route. Listen, this comparison was pretty off, but I do get it. And the fact that Mo shot 40% from 3 this year is something to really keep your eyes on. If he keeps progressing like this, he could start making some noise. Then of course, the infamous one in 2018, Luka Doncic was compared to both Hedo Turkoglu and Toni Kukoc. People thought he was going to be a stretch 4 type of guy that just had good handles. Well, a better comparison now would have been a cross between Larry Bird and LeBron James. Of course, he's not that good, but he has that type of style, especially since he's a point guard. And him coming into the league was weird. There was a lot of people saying that he'd be pretty good, but he's coming from overseas, so they didn't know too much. And then there were very few other people saying that he was going to be a real superstar right away. But then finally for 2019, Tyler Hero was thought to be a cross between Nick Stauskas and Joe Harris. So basically a guy that could dribble some and maneuver around the court, but also shoot really well. And he destroyed those comparisons in his rookie season. I would do 2020 and 21 comparisons, but I still think it's just a little too early to overreact to a couple of these. I think it takes at least 3 good years to get an idea of who most guys will be. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.